All right, in today's explainer, we are completely tearing down a myth that honestly, most of us have built our entire lives around. We're talking about the epic battle between our emotional armor and our true awareness. If you have ever had that secret, burning desire to just be unshakable, to be totally free from the exhausting emotional weight of caring about criticism or rejection or betrayal, then you are exactly where you need to be right now. We're going to dive deep into why the very things we do to protect ourselves are actually destroying us, and how depth psychology offers a pretty radical way out.
Seriously, think about it for a second. Have you ever secretly wished to just be completely unshakable? It's a profound question, right? Because when you really look at it, the sheer, exhausting energy it takes to maintain this strong facade all the time is massive. You try to please everyone, you present this image that requires constant, unyielding strength, and you pretend that absolutely nothing gets to you. But on the inside, you're probably silently bleeding. You're exhausted from the immense pressure of trying to look untouchable while feeling incredibly fragile behind closed doors.
And that brings us to a harsh, kind of unavoidable truth. As long as you avoid pain, it completely controls you. We've got it in our heads that by numbing ourselves, by building these massive walls to block out the words that hurt us, the betrayals that disappoint us, and the silences that just crush us, we're somehow taking control. But the source material makes it crystal clear. When you try to hide from the world, you actually become a hostage to everything happening around you. Your avoidance is the exact thing giving external events their power over you.
So, to understand how to actually break this exhausting cycle, we need to bring in Carl Jung, who is basically one of the greatest minds in depth psychology. He famously said, "We are not what happens to us, but what we choose to become." Jung actually believed that our greatest traumas held the literal keys to our potential. It's time to shift our whole narrative away from being these helpless external victims of the world and move toward internal integration. It's not about what the world throws at you anymore. It's entirely about what you do with it on the inside. So we're essentially looking at a clash between two totally different forces here. On one side, you have emotional armor. This is what most of us use every day: repression, wearing heavy masks, and desperately chasing the illusion of control. It's a fake, fragile protection that literally just leads to exhaustion. But on the exact opposite side is true awareness. This is about integration, facing reality head-on, and gaining real emotional clarity. The failing defense mechanisms of the ego offer fake protection, sure, but true awareness, that offers profound, deep freedom. So you might be wondering, why exactly does the armor fail so spectacularly? Well, because the wound is already open inside you. It is brutal, I know, but it's true. The actions of other people, their poorly chosen words, or sudden abandonments, they don't actually have the power to hurt you all on their own. They only hurt because they're activating an unaddressed, unintegrated trauma that's already sitting right there within you. It's not about what happens, it's about exactly where it hits you. And as for that illusion of control we all desperately cling to, Carl Jung totally shatters it with this one observation. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is absolutely crucial to understand. You are not actually in control when you're just living on autopilot. If you think the universe is just treating you poorly by fate, you are more than likely missing the internal director pulling all the strings behind the scenes. Let's actually define what that internal director is. The unconscious isn't just some vague, foggy cloud of thoughts. It is a highly active, underground system. It is packed to the brim with repressed memories, traumas, desires, and fears that completely dictate your feelings and actions, entirely under the radar. This is the real Jungian battleground. Until you understand this hidden system, it's going to sabotage every single attempt you make at controlling your life.
So what does this actually look like in your everyday life? Well, it looks like repeating the same toxic relationship patterns over and over. It looks like unbreakable cycles of self-sabotage, sudden explosions of totally unexplained anger, or that crippling anxiety that hits you out of nowhere when everything supposedly seems fine. Let me be clear, this isn't just bad luck. This is your unconscious aggressively demanding your attention. It's literally trying to wake you up, but that heavy armor you wear insists on staying fast asleep.
Okay, so how do we actually fix this? By choosing integration over isolation. Becoming truly untouchable isn't some act of stubborn resistance. You do not achieve it by building thicker walls or completely isolating yourself from the world. You achieve it by taking your buried darkness and finally bringing it into the light. When you integrate your fears and your flaws, you stop reacting to everything like a puppet on a string. You finally, actually, gain the power of choice. And there's this brilliant quote from Jung that perfectly captures the whole spirit of that integration. He said, "Know all the theories, master all the techniques, but as you touch a human soul, be just another human soul." This is such a great reminder that true emotional strength has absolutely nothing to do with being cold or distant. It's not about being this highly controlled and vulnerable robot. Real strength requires deep, vulnerable human acceptance, both of yourself and of everybody else. Now, in Jungian psychology, this whole journey has a very specific name. It's called individuation. And this is the profound, lifelong process of becoming who you truly are. It's the meeting point of your light and your shadow. It perfectly bridges your conscious ego with your deep unconscious. Individuation is basically the ultimate secret here, because it is the only true path to absolute emotional immunity and true self-realization.
And honestly, here is the absolute most liberating part of this entire concept. You do not need to be perfect. You just need to be whole. Individuation is not some exhausting quest for perfection. You don't have to become a flawless, better person. You literally just have to embrace your flaws, your fears, the beautiful parts, the ugly parts, the noble and the shameful. When you accept your entirety, the whole shebang, you strip the external world of any ammunition it could ever possibly use against you. But to get to that wholeness, we really have to flip our lifelong conditioning completely upside down and realize something huge. Pain is a messenger, not an enemy. Since we were kids, most of us were taught that suffering equals weakness, that crying is just a waste of time. But here's the thing. Ignored pain doesn't just magically vanish. It digs tunnels deep inside you and disguises itself as anxiety or just pure apathy. We have to stop distracting ourselves and realize that pain is simply the alarm bell of the unconscious, desperately asking for our attention. Jung actually used this incredibly powerful, almost eerie metaphor for this. He said, "Depression is like a lady in black. If she appears, don't push her away. Invite her in, offer her a seat, and listen to what she has to say." We have got to stop slamming the door on our own internal alarms. The friction between your ego trying to control everything and your soul just wanting to grow is exactly what causes your suffering. You actually have to invite that suffering in and listen to what it's trying to tell you. So if we invite it in, what happens next? Let's actually map out how this massive transformation happens. It's an evolution of awareness that usually unfolds in 3 distinct steps. Step 1 is deconstruction. This is letting go of old beliefs, which feels like a really painful crumbling of all your certainties. Step 2 is vulnerability, standing right there in that internal ruin, finally dropping the exhausted mask. And step 3 is rebirth. From that exact point of ruin, completely without your layers of fake protection, the true unshakable self finally emerges. It is a painful progression, sure, but it is deeply, deeply sacred. Now, you might be wondering, why on earth would we willingly go through that kind of pain? Well, because simply surviving is not actually living. The persona you built, that heavy mask of collective convenience you wear just to be loved or respected or admired, it was an incredible tool once. It helped you survive your past. But that very same mask is now the exact thing preventing you from truly living your life. Individuation is life's call to finally move way beyond mere survival. To actually answer that call, you have to do something that is, honestly, pretty terrifying. You must unlearn what you are not. You are not your achievements. You're not your past traumas. You are definitely not the mask you wear to be loved. And you certainly are not the expectations of others. Tearing off this mask, literally tearing off your own skin to face your monsters underneath, is the absolute prerequisite to finally claiming your true core. And this right here is the ultimate difference between fake protection and true awareness. True emotional armor is a solid core, not a fragile shell. Real strength isn't about guaranteeing nothing ever affects you again. It's about having gone through the fire, looking right into the eyes of your own shame and anger, and realizing they just don't control you anymore. When you integrate all your parts into a solid center of consciousness, you will absolutely still feel pain, yes, but you will flat out refuse to be broken by it. Which brings us to the absolute ultimate rule of internal alchemy. Jung noted, what you resist persists, what you accept transforms. Kind of funny how that works, right? You've likely spent your entire life resisting the fear of not being enough or the pain of loneliness, and look where all that resisting got you. Just totally exhausted. Acceptance is the only actual mechanism for genuine emotional evolution. When you're just living on the surface with your artificial emotional armor, you are getting battered by absolutely every single external wave.
You are fragile, you're constantly reactive. But when you finally inhabit the depths through true awareness, you find silence, you drop anchor, you find real integrated power. The world might still try to knock you down, for sure, but it simply won't find a weak spot to hit anymore. So, as we wrap up this explainer, realize that your real work is honestly just beginning. You have a choice. Will you keep merely surviving behind a fragile mask, or will you bravely choose true awareness? Remember, true immunity isn't about hardness, it's about absolute clarity. It is an everyday choice to look within, even when it really hurts. So I challenge you today. Drop the exhausted armor, step into the depths, and finally,
All right, into